Before we begin, take 1 second, hit subscribe, like this video, and drop your thoughts in the comments. This story is moving fast and your voice matters. This is not just another political moment. This is a clash that stopped people mid-sentence, turned heads across borders, and sent shockwaves through both Canada and the United States in real time. It happened live, no warning, no filter, and no one saw it coming this direct. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney looked straight ahead on live television and did something few world leaders have dared to do so openly. He challenged the sitting President of the United States, Donald Trump, in a way that was calm, sharp, and impossible to ignore. The tension between these two nations has been building quietly for months. Trade disagreements, border concerns, military tone shifts, words exchanged behind closed doors. But now, it is no longer behind closed doors. Now the world is watching. Carney did not raise his voice. He did not lose control. That is what made it more powerful. Every word was measured. Every sentence carried weight. And every pause made the message even louder. He spoke about respect. He spoke about fairness. And then he pointed directly at actions taken by President Trump that Canada says are hurting both countries. And in that moment, something changed. This was no longer just politics. This became personal. This became a test of leadership, a test of strength, a test of who will stand firm and who will step back. Across Canada, people leaned in closer to their screens. Across the United States, viewers felt the shift immediately. Social media exploded within seconds. Analysts scrambled. Supporters on both sides began to speak out. Because when two powerful leaders speak this directly, the world listens. And here's what makes this even more serious. This is not just about words. Real decisions are behind this. Decisions that affect jobs, security, and the future of two nations that have long stood side by side. Now, that relationship is under pressure like never before. And the big question is simple but heavy. What happens next? Because after a moment like this, there is no easy return to normal. And as this story unfolds, one thing is clear. This is only the beginning. What made that moment even more powerful was not just what was said, but when it was said. This was live television. No delay, no edits, no chance to take words back. Mark Carney knew exactly what he was doing. He chose a moment when millions were watching. He chose a moment when the pressure was already high. And he used that moment to send a message that went far beyond Canada. He spoke directly about trade decisions coming from President Donald Trump's administration, new tariffs, new restrictions, moves that Canada says are not fair and not friendly. And here's the key point. Canada is not just any country. It is one of America's closest allies, a partner in trade, a neighbor that shares one of the longest borders in the world. So when Canada speaks this strongly, it means something serious is happening behind the scenes. Carney made it clear. These policies are not just numbers on paper, they are affecting real people, workers, families, businesses on both sides of the border. Factories slowing down, prices going up, jobs becoming uncertain. And as he spoke, you could feel the shift. This was not a quiet disagreement anymore. This was a public challenge. And the message was simple. Canada will not stay silent. At the same time, President Trump has made his position clear for months. America first. Strong borders, tough trade deals. No backing down. So now, these two positions are on a collision path, and when leaders refuse to step back, tensions rise fast. That is exactly what the world is seeing right now. Because once words are spoken this openly, they cannot be ignored. And the pressure now moves to one place, the response. What will President Trump say? And more importantly, what will he do? Because in moments like this, silence is also a message. And right now, the world is waiting. Within minutes of that broadcast, reactions began pouring in from every direction. Political leaders, business experts, everyday citizens, everyone had something to say. In Canada, many people stood behind Mark Carney. They saw strength, they saw leadership, they saw someone willing to defend the country without fear. Across the United States, reactions were divided. Some supported President Donald Trump, saying strong trade actions are necessary to protect American jobs. Others questioned whether pushing allies like Canada this far could backfire, because here's the reality. This relationship is deeply connected. Every day, billions of dollars move between these two countries. Goods, services, energy, food is all tied together. So when tension rises, it does not stay in politics. It moves into daily life. Gas prices, grocery costs, employment stability, this is where it hits hardest. Experts began warning almost immediately. If this situation grows, both sides could feel real economic pain. And still, the tone for both leaders remains firm. No sign of backing down. No signal of compromise. That is what is making this moment so critical. Because history has shown this before. When strong leaders take strong positions, the outcome can go in two directions: resolution or escalation. And right now, it is not clear which way this will go. But one thing is certain: the clock is ticking. Behind the scenes, something even bigger may be unfolding. Diplomatic channels are now under pressure. Private conversations, emergency meetings, advisors working around the clock, because while the public sees the words, leaders are dealing with the consequences, and those consequences can move fast. Trade deals can be frozen, agreements can be challenged, new rules can appear overnight. This is the kind of moment where one decision can change everything, and sources close to both sides are already signaling concern. Not panic, but concern, because neither country benefits from a long conflict. Canada relies heavily on trade with the United States, and the United States benefits from a stable, strong Canadian partnership. So the risk here is not just political damage, it is economic impact on a massive scale. Yet, even with that risk, the tone remains strong. Carney is standing firm. Trump is known for never stepping back under pressure, and that combination creates a very narrow path forward, a path that requires careful moves, not emotional reactions. But in politics, especially at this level, emotions do play a role. National pride, public pressure, political image, all of it matters, and all of it is now in play. This is why the next move matters more than ever. Because one wrong step could push this situation further than anyone expects. Now, the spotlight turns directly to President Donald Trump, because after a challenge like this, the response is everything. Will it be strong and immediate, or calm and strategic? Trump has built his leadership style on strength, confidence, and direct action. He is not known for staying quiet when challenged. So many are expecting a response that matches or even exceeds the tone set by Mark Carney. And that is where the tension grows even more. Because if both sides push harder, the gap widens. And once that gap becomes too wide, it becomes very hard to close. Supporters of Trump are already calling for a firm stance. They argue that America must not appear weak. On the other side, voices are calling for calm, for dialogue, for leaders to step back and protect the relationship. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about winning an argument. It is about protecting millions of lives connected through this partnership. And here's the truth that many are now starting to realize. This moment could define the future of U.S.-Canada relations for years to come. One broadcast, one challenge, one response. That is all it takes. And right now, the world is watching closely, because whatever happens next will not just stay between these two leaders. It will ripple across economies, across borders, and into everyday life. And that is why this story is far from over. There is something else happening here that many people are only starting to notice. This is not just about Canada and the United States anymore. Other countries are watching very closely. Allies in Europe, partners in Asia, even rivals who are always looking for signs of weakness or division. Because when two of the world's closest allies show tension like this, it sends a signal far beyond their borders. It raises questions. Is this a temporary disagreement, or is this the start of a deeper shift? And that question matters, Because global trade systems depend on stability, military alliances depend on trust, international decisions depend on cooperation. If that trust begins to crack, even slightly, it can create uncertainty everywhere. And uncertainty is dangerous in global politics. Leaders around the world are now quietly preparing for both outcomes. If things calm down, they move forward as usual. But if things escalate, they must adjust quickly. New trade routes, new partnerships, new strategies, all because of one growing tension. And this is why the pressure on both Mark Carney and President Donald Trump is not just national, it is global. Because the decisions they make next will not only affect their own people, they could influence the direction of international relationships across the world. That is how big this moment has become. Inside the United States, the political temperature is rising just as fast. This moment has become more than foreign policy. It is now part of a bigger conversation about leadership, strength, and direction. Supporters of President Donald Trump see this as a test of resolve. They believe standing firm against any challenge, even from close allies, shows power. They argue that America must lead, not follow. But critics are raising a different concern. They are asking whether pushing allies away could leave the United States more isolated. And isolation in today's world can come with serious risks, because strong alliances often mean stronger economies, better security, and greater influence. So now, this single moment is feeding into a much larger debate inside the country, and that debate is growing louder by the hour. Television networks are covering it nonstop. Experts are breaking down every word, every pause, every possible meaning, and the public is paying attention because people understand something important is happening. This is not routine politics. This feels different, more intense, more direct, more uncertain. And when people feel uncertainty, they start asking bigger questions. Where is this going? Who is right? And what will this mean for the future? Right now, those questions do not have clear answers, but they are not going away. Back in Canada, the reaction is just as powerful, but with a different tone. There is a strong sense of unity building. Many Canadians are standing behind Mark Carney, not just because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Calm, controlled, direct. That approach is being seen as strength, without aggression. And that matters, because in moments like this, tone can shape perception just as much as action. Canadian leaders across different political sides are beginning to align on one message: protect the country's interests, stay firm, but avoid unnecessary escalation. It is a careful balance. Stand strong, but do not push too far. And that balance is not easy to maintain, because when pressure rises, emotions can take over. National pride can push leaders to go further than planned. Public support can create expectations that are hard to manage. And all of that is building right now. The question is whether that unity will hold if the situation grows more intense. Because if stronger actions come from the United States, Canada may be forced to respond in ways that go beyond words. And once actions replace words, everything changes. Now, the focus returns to one critical point. The next move. Every expert agrees on this. What happens next will shape everything. If President Donald Trump responds with force, the situation could escalate quickly. If he chooses a more measured approach, there may still be a path to calm things down. But timing is also key. The longer the silence, the more pressure builds. The more pressure builds, the harder it becomes to control the outcome. And behind the scenes, both sides know this. Advisors are likely weighing every possible response. Every word is being tested. Every reaction is being predicted, because one wrong move could trigger a chain reaction. Markets could react, businesses could pause decisions, international partners could shift positions. This is how quickly things can move at this level, and that is why this moment feels so tense. Not because of what has already happened, but because of what could happen next. That is where the real story is now. This is the kind of moment that people remember, not just for what was said, but for what followed. because history is filled with moments like this. A single exchange, a single challenge, a single response, and everything changes. Right now, the world is standing at that edge, watching, waiting, listening. Mark Carney has made his position clear. President Donald Trump now holds the next move, and between those two positions lies a future that is still uncertain. Will this lead to stronger understanding or deeper division? Will this moment pass quietly, or will it grow into something much bigger? No one can say for sure, but one thing is certain. This is not just another news story. This is a turning point, and as it unfolds, it will shape conversations, decisions, and relationships far beyond this moment. So stay alert, stay informed, and keep watching closely, because this story is still moving, and the next chapter could come at any time.